I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, AfterBuzzers, and welcome to the Barkskins After Show. Today we're talking about episodes 5 and 6, Buttermilk, and the Wobble. As I always on my extra page of notes. Yes, and then also stay tuned at the very end because we have some really cool Barkskins press junket footage for you. And we also, towards the end of this program, we have our special segment where we look at the real historical information and how much the show, how accurate it is. But before we get into all that, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Carrie Lane. I'm joined by my awesome co-host.
Hey everyone, I am Rachel Goodman, and I'm really excited to be back to talk about what we saw in these episodes and also to talk about some of the history at the end.
Yes, I'm back. I'm glad to be back to talk about this show. So if you're joining us live, welcome. Join us in the chat. And if you're watching it later, comment down below your thoughts on this episode. So Rachel, what did you think of these two episodes? So things are kind of picking up a bit.
Yeah, they're definitely picking up. I love that we're seeing more with Mathilde. I also am drawn to what's going to happen, not just with Trepagny, but also with Melissande and Delphine. Now that we know certain things about Delphine, it just kind of feels like everything is starting to kind of like it was wound up in the first 4 episodes, and now we're kind of starting to unwind, and the stakes are very high up there.
Yeah, I think these episodes finally revealed a bit more of a lot of questions we have. We finally figure out what's going on with Cross, but a few more questions are brought up, of course. And I agree. I like where it's going with Mathilde. It's really interesting. Also, Melissandre and Delphine, I'm liking how everything's really kind of coming together. Almost like the inn has kind of been this new central location where everybody's kind of converging, which has really been fun. Because then it makes sense. I mean, if that's the main hub, main restaurant in town, that's where everybody's going to kind of go. So I'm curious on where that might lead us. So speaking of Mathilde, we get Mathilde and Renardette at the beginning, and she talks. She finally says her first words, and she talks. She asks about being safe. Were you surprised that she finally was able to start talking?
No, I think that we needed that to happen at this point, and I was glad that they did start to bond. But obviously, Little Fox is not going to divulge more of what's happened that we saw in the episode before. But I do like that we got a little more, bit more information, and that we're starting to see, just with her in general, with Little Fox, we're starting to see some of the trauma seep through in her personality. But I did like that conversation that she had with Mathilde.
And we learn that Gasquet is alive, which she just stabbed him. I'm a little bummed. But I guess it's good that she wasn't able to murder him, but did some damage.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if she had murdered him, one, that might be something else that kind of weighed on her soul. But then on top of that, she might have had deeper repercussions because it might have gotten back to her. And, because she's just a child, maybe she wouldn't have been able to fight her way out of it.
That's a good point. Speaking of people trying to find ways out of things, we have Trepagny. He finds Marie, what she buried and everything like that, all the stuff taken away. Their relationship has gotten so wonderfully complicated that I'm whose side are you more on? I think I'm more on Marie's side because Trepagny he's quite the character, but I'm like, you're doing your girl wrong.
I'm on Marie's side, but I don't want her to be with Trepagny. I want her to leave like she is intending to do.
Please,
and
yes.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on the book a little bit, the book, and this is kind of a spoiler, but I don't know that they're going to do this in the show, so I'm just going to say it. Rene and Marie have a thing, so I'm hoping that
you've mentioned, which I really hope they do.
I hope they do that. Yeah, they might. I mean, we don't know yet. We are seeing, more Rene now, but I hope that Marie actually, leaves him and finds her way on her own without him. Because I feel like Trepagny is better off with someone like Melissandre,
Mhm.
who looks like she can be conniving. And I think that that's what Trepagny deserves. Someone who's conniving, not someone who's actually kind.
Agreed. Yeah, him and Melisandre are a far better match. I don't necessarily know about like romantic match, but like personality types, I feel that goes together better.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't appreciate a kind partner. And like in a way, I kind of think he enjoys the like headbutting he gets from Melisandre a little bit. I think he enjoys that she gives a little bit of pushback. I think he likes the almost like you could call it sassy, because she's a little. It's that fine line of you don't want to say if a woman's strong that it's a bad thing, but I'm like no, she's kind of a brat. She's a bit of a brat.
She's definitely a brat. I was watching this with hubby Joe, and he had some other choice words for her that I won't say. But I really don't. I don't like. I don't like Melissandre, but I really love her relationship with Delphine. So I can't say that I 100% dislike Melissandre, but overall, she's not one of my favorite characters.
Fair, yeah, she's definitely. But I like that she's complicated, and it's not some just like boring, shallow kind of character. Well, shallow in a different way, maybe. So speaking of that, we get Melissandre and Marie. Their breakfast standoff was kind of fun, though. And I'm glad that Marie's like, screw this. I'm leaving. This is not worth my time and energy. Also, how I did like that Marie and Melisandre and Trepagny kind of get that ultimatum where Melisandre tells him, all right, Marie, if you go to her cabin at night, like I can't control the consequences. And good on her too for saying that, because like if you're the wife, I mean, unless you're okay with having like another lady there, which like that's an option too, but if she's not, you need to lay out your ground rules.
Yeah, and I appreciated that. And I appreciate the fact that Melissandre is so much younger than Trepagny, and she is not allowing him to take advantage of her. She's like, no, I'm putting my foot down. Like she's really stepping up as an equal and not allowing him to treat her like property or like a girl bride, as Marie referred to her. And I understand Marie is upset, so it doesn't bother me to hear Marie call her that. But with Melissandre, I do love that she's standing her ground, and I was definitely on her side in that moment where she was saying, listen, Trepagny, if you go to her cabin, you will face peril.
But then it kind of is almost an interesting pivot, because then when Trepagny shows Melisandre his private special room and he whispers to my God, I think I did like their discussion on you pray to a log, and he's like, well, what is it when you pray to the Virgin Mary? It is just a statue. It is just a log that's been carved and painted, which I was like, hey, touche. That's a good argument. It's just, it represents something. But I think this is her moment where she's like, ooh, maybe he's a little cray cray.
Yeah. And I understand that. Like, okay, so in 2020, someone might try to be more understanding of a person who has different religious beliefs, but this is not 2020. This is a different time. Yep. And in Melissandre's world, she's French. In France at this time, Catholicism was the religion. And so to go to a place where there's a man and he's talking about a completely different way of life, and is in her mind, because he's not like praying to the same God, because he's doing all these like weird rituals. No, she's gonna see this as being very like demonic. So I understand. I think she handled it very well for someone of her time period.
Yeah, I think she's smart that she's not going to freak out at him. Just be like, oh. But later, I don't know if it's in this episode or the next, but I do like that she kind of says, this is your space. Fine, do whatever you want, but the rest of the house is mine. Yes. And he says, yes. So I'm like, all right, well, then that seems like a better arrangement. Speaking of interesting arrangements, we got Cooke and Duque, at the stocks essentially, and we get Mathilde, our girl, and comes to confront Cooke about the young girl, which I do like, because I mean Mathilde can't just keep her a secret for so long. She needs to say, hey, are you gonna kill her?
Yeah,
What do
absolutely.
you think of the buttermilk too?
Yeah.
Like throw it in his face.
It was hilarious. And like the thing is, we know that Cooke's a dangerous man in the sense that he will never tell someone to their face what he plans on doing. He's not trustworthy. He will act like your friend, and like he sometimes does things that actually make you want to like the guy. So it's kind of hard when you know that he's behind certain evils. But then he'll say, you know, for example, take care of Lafarge's wife, and, you know, make sure that she's provided for financially, because he knows that he's the cause of the husband's death and the son. But seeing him, like, I feel I was a little worried for Mathilde in that moment, because what I'm assuming, not to get into too many predictions, but I just don't trust Cooke's word. And I feel like him knowing about that the girl is with her might lead to some very serious problems.
I think that is a very good prediction of like probably. And then speaking of problems, we get Pierre takes Delphine back and says that they're an unworthy match. I do like that apparently that's okay enough of, you know, they can break it off, because I guess, you know, they didn't consummate it, so it's fine. And she's okay with it. And I will admit I was a bit disappointed of like what the big deal was, but I'm glad we finally know of she was scarred. And now I'm assuming, and what do you think it was more? Do you think it was a specific branding scarring, or was it more like, you know, like all kinds of crazy cut up?
The sense I got is that the man was pissed off that he didn't actually get to take what he wanted, and he branded her with his initials. That is the sense I got. And that it might not, like, I'm assuming that she was kicking, you know, still trying to get away from him. So it probably, you know, wasn't like I'm guessing it sounded very messy. I'm not, you know, just the idea of when she was describing it. I thought it was interesting, and I know you and I were talking about this before the show. It's interesting that they did not show, we didn't get to see what it was on her stomach, which, you know, in film, I mean, normally you use more of the showing technique than the telling, but I do think that it did work in this case, because the just listening to Delphine's story was so sad, and showing us, you know, what her circumstances were like because of a scar. And I know I thought, like, in the previous episode, when her, you know, to-be husband saw what she looked like, I thought it was pregnancy, that she was actually pregnant right now. Either that, or I assumed that he somehow realized she had been pregnant. I don't know how you would realize someone is pregnant, but that's kind of, I thought it was along those lines somehow. Not that there was someone's, you know, an initial carved into her, which is obviously.
No, that makes way more sense of initials, because at first I was a little unclear of like, you know, his branding, his mark, but it makes sense of initials, because then that would be more like you feel it's damaged goods. But the thing that it's weird, because I thought the nuns did a thorough exam, and I'm like thinking to myself, well, what could be wrong with her that the nun would be like, it's fine, there's no real problem here, but that this man would be like, oh no, I don't want it at all, take it back. But all right, fine. They want their pure virgin wives.
I'm wondering, I mean, because here's the thing, my guess is that the reason why he said, oh no, Pierre Garske is his name. The reason why he would say, oh, I don't want her anymore, he's probably assuming that this meant that someone did sleep with her. That's my guess. And that he's not going to believe her if she says otherwise. I'm sure she tried to say otherwise, but I mean, we know she's honest. I believe her story. But my thing is, my guess with the nun, with the mother, is that she didn't catch it, because I don't know that she was actually looking at their body, their naked body. It was more like a check, you know, right under the dress. So maybe
that's true.
Maybe that's how she missed it on her stomach.
Yeah.
maybe.
I thought it was actually kind of cool, like, reveal of her character when she's talking with Mathilde later, which I'm like, I think that might be later. When we learned that she murdered her assaulter. So I was like, okay, got some secrets, got some skeletons in that closet.
And that's the reason she had to leave town. It wasn't the first things. Obviously, no one, I guess, found out about the first thing, or it wasn't enough to drive her from the town, but the murder was.
I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that was a bit more interesting for her character. Which I also do love that Delphine then goes to work at the inn, which I thought was great. Like, that's a perfect way for her to go in terms of to earn a living, and Mathilde needs somebody that you're like, wow, this relationship works great. Did you notice, and I had to pause it and then I Googled it, what Renardette was carving, and it was Pro Pele Cut. And I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but that is a pelt for a skin, and it's the Hudson Bay Company motto.
Ah, I did not notice that. I paused it to see what the word was, but I did not look it up. So that is very interesting.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, and how does this kid know that? And the fact that she's carving it. So I was like, oh, okay.
And carving it right in front of the mother.
Who then was like holding her cross. Kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
We also get the arrival of the Defer, and I wrote his name is Selzer, the kind of his right-hand man with Bouchard when they show up, which was kind of interesting. I feel this might spell trouble, and for a lot of people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like, especially when we start talking about the next episode, a lot of this is starting to tie into, the A element plot line, which is this whole idea with Mr. Cross and everything going on with Bouchard and the Iroquois. Yeah, I do think it's gonna spell trouble.
Well, Cooke does get released, and they suggest doing the parlay with the Iroquois, and I feel that that's, even then I'm like, I don't feel this is a good plan, and we learn later it's not a good plan. I do like that they call out, like, hey, doing the display of the bodies was a bad idea. Continuing with Cooke, his beard chat with Duque was so weird. I was like, okay.
It was so awkward. Oh my God. I was like, are they really having this conversation about, Duque growing out his beard? Oh, is that the most you can do? These whiskers. They're like, in his own words, talking about how it's his most distinguished feature. And you need a beard. And like, then he was mentioning his wife. And I was like, whoa, dude, like TMI.
Yeah, that was super weird. Such an odd conversation. But in a weird way, I don't like Duque much, but I kind of like, in a bad way, that for him, Cooke is essentially a mentor, telling him to straighten up, telling him he gets him better clothes, and, like, it betters his character, Duque, but it's still like, I don't know if I like your mentor, but I like that you're improving.
I'm not sure how I feel about Cooke or Duque, but like you said, Carrie, when it comes to them together, it's kind of sentimental, because Duque to me is almost like an abandoned, traumatized puppy. And so,
yes, I was just thinking, I'm like, he's like a lost dog.
Yeah, and so even when I see Duque do bad things, I still feel really bad for him, because he feels like it's because of the trauma, and that's why. And now he's got a mentor, and Cooke is looking out for him, and Cooke really, and Duque can also hold his own too. Yeah, I really liked that.
Hamish and Yvonne, I think it's interesting laying the groundwork that something's wrong with the company. Hamish is really suspicious of what the company wants them all to do, but Yvonne's more like, it's just work. And the idea that the company wants to arm the Iroquois is a really interesting plot thing that I don't know if I was picking up on that before. Were you a little surprised that that's what the Hudson Bay Company wanted?
No, because they were talking. No, I wasn't personally surprised, because a couple episodes when Gomes went to visit in Quebec, he really got that sense from the manager. So I knew that that's what they were trying to allude to. And that specifically Cross might be involved.
Who do you think killed Thomas Lafarge, the little boy? Because he wasn't killed by Duque.
Yeah, as far as we know, Duque let him go.
Yeah, so
I'm guessing, and not to get, this is like a prediction, but
yeah,
I'm guessing that when we meet, he goes by Gay Bill. When we meet him, I am almost wondering if Gay Bill instructed the Iroquois to do it.
Maybe.
I almost think that might be, yeah.
Then they have, we get the reveal that Cross is at the inn when the Defer and Cooke are all there, and Renardette does a nice stare off with Gasquet, which was interesting. Which leads us into episode 6, the Wobble. So speaking of Hamish, Cross, and Yvonne, so I thought it was also interesting of the secret order of this place. And that's wonderful, mysterious. What are you thinking that is all about?
I'm still trying to figure that out because they have given us not enough details yet to really process it. But my guess is that where all of this is headed is in the direction of, the arming the Iroquois to fight against the French, and that is really what the Hudson Bay Company is up to at this moment, and that's kind of what the secret society ties into.
That might be it too, because he points out you don't know, they're talking about like you don't know what the company wants and everything. So I thought that was really like, okay.
Yeah, that's my guess is where.
Yeah. Also, how they're being asked to leave, which was kind of interesting. How Mathilde's like, Defer wants you guys gone, and Renardette. What do you think that was about her putting the rabbit in his lap?
So I think that was her reminder of she knows what he's involved with. And that she's holding him responsible. And rabbits seem to be a theme in this show.
Yeah.
The way that this is not the first time they've mentioned rabbits. And I think that is just their way of kind of calling back to that, calling back to a scene I believe we had actually with Melissande and Delphine back before they were, back before Melissande was set up with Trepagny. So I have a feeling it's a callback to that. And I think it's really just the little girl's way of saying, hey, I know your involvement. You know that I know you're involved. But she can't do much about it other than just show him that she's still alive.
Yeah. Also another one that I don't think so, but I kind of wonder, do you think Renardette is going to be jealous of Delphine getting attention at the inn? I think Mathilde's relationship with Delphine is different enough, but I had a moment that I'm like, oh, please don't let this be a plot line.
Wait, that
Renardette would be jealous of Delphine and how Mathilde is taking her in and giving her attention now.
I don't think so. That's not the sense I got. The sense that I got was that I feel like Mathilde is a lot harsher with Delphine because Delphine is older. But I get the sense that it's going to Mathilde being so harsh on Delphine is going to drive Delphine away. I also got the sense that when Cooke was in the inn, that Cooke definitely, like when he heard Delphine's voice, he was reminded of his deceased wife. And I almost got the sense that Duque was going to eventually have some kind of like relationship with Delphine, just the way that they were looking at each other. Yeah.
I was definitely getting the inklings that maybe Cooke was very much, that Delphine reminds him of his wife. I was wondering then, I mean, this is getting into prediction-y stuff, but I'm wondering if Cooke will take Delphine on as a wife. I think if Delphine gets any say, I think Duque is below her status, that she shouldn't marry him because he's definitely not she's socially higher than that. But I don't know if Cooke financially would probably be a good match, but I don't know as a human being. I'm just like, maybe not. So we'll see. So the other crazy thing that's going on here is, one, we have the search party of Trepagny and Bouchard, and oh man, when the priest said, which, hey, I'm all for having your faith, yes, but I'm gonna go jump in the ocean, not know how to swim, and God's gonna save me. I'm like, no, don't, no, this is bad.
I knew they were all dead. I knew it. I was like, thank God, thank goodness that Trepagny and Bouchard had the rifles ready. I was like, no disrespect to someone who is religious, but in certain moments, you do not just rely on a Bible to help you through something when we know that this was not going to end peacefully.
No, I mean, unless you're going to use it as a literal shield and be like, oof,
that might help, but not when they come at you from behind.
No, definitely saw that coming. I'm like, this is an awful, horrible plan. I even wrote like, oh shit, when that fight really went down. I did appreciate though of how brutal it was, because I mean, today even fighting is brutal, but even more so then of the kind of guns they had, the kind of fighting style that's going on. And then even when the one priest fell on top of the other one with the rocks, I was just like, oh, like that's almost comedic, and it was like, no.
Yeah.
Whew, yeah. That was a rough fight. I'm glad that Rene is okay, and I was worried about him. He's had a lot of bad wounds, and I was like, whoa.
I felt really bad for the guy that they shot with the arrow. Who was the friend? Yeah, I was like, oh. And I felt bad for him. I felt bad for actually Trepagny, because as much as
that head wound, I was worried.
Yeah, me too. And then the way that it always freaks me out when a character, the two things, when a character like lands on their head, and suddenly when the camera is back on them, we're looking, well, not on them, but when we're looking through their perspective, and we can't really hear, things are rocking. I'm like, oh no, what happened? Is this like a permanent brain damage? And when like, not in this show, but like when we hear loud, noises or blasts or bombs go off, and they do the thing where the character can't hear, I'm like, nah, like, no, don't scare me like that.
We got hubby Joe in the chat said, yeah, the skinny one fell on the fat one. Yes, that was it's true. And it was almost kind of comedic in a bad way of like, awkward.
And it was the father who survived that horrific event in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy. Like, and he got shot by friendly fire. I thought that was even worse.
In the head.
No. Yeah. I mean, at least it was quick. But yeah, that fight was crazy. I'm sorry if I say his name wrong, but I think his name was Hawasta, because no. Hawasta was the person they go to later. Sorry. No. Sorry, just kidding. I think Hawasta is the name of the friend, and if I said it wrong, I'm sorry. So that's the
one who got shot with,
Yeah. So then so that other character that we meet, and I didn't write it out spelling, but I think it's like Rantanert. What is his name? The one who was part of the Iroquois, which was weird on Hulu. I was watching on Hulu. Hubby Joe says that was the line in the show. This is true. The skinny one fell on the fat one. I thought it was weird on the show, and I was a little bit confused because they're calling them Iroquois, but on Hulu subtitles it says they're speaking Mohawk. So I'm like, but then is Mohawk Iroquois?
Yes. So there's two different types of Iroquois. There is Iroquois, which encompasses many different tribes, including the Cherokee, among others. There is then the Iroquois Confederacy, which is something else. But in terms of when you say Iroquois, there are multiple tribes that fall under the Iroquois. So yeah, that's why.
Cool. Thank you. The more you know. Because I thought that was really interesting, because I'm like, this group definitely looks very different than the other ones that we've been following. Like, they have the Mohawk shaved, so I thought they're interesting. So I think it was like Rat Tanthertos, that character, who I think he is a very formidable kind of villain person. And yes, he's working with the character Gay Bill, which is also an interesting name. But also at the time, gay meant more just jolly and happy. So okay, I'm curious on this guy. He also seems like a sleazeball that I'm like, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
I think it's smart though. The what?
He didn't seem so happy to me.
No. That Bouchard and Trepagny and Cell, I'm glad that they retreat and they're like, no, don't even try to get what's going on. And again, I say, sorry if we say this name wrong, but I'm glad we still have the Toyanik. Sorry if I say his name wrong, but that's the Native American that they've been working with a bit before, and how he takes his friend's body, and I like the French are like, we'll come back and get them later with their bodies. So that was a interesting thing with that. Also, another thing with this trio, what did you think of Trepagny and Cell essentially having their faith chat, which I thought was really kind of cool? And like, what did you see before death, and how what did you see before death, the conversation in general, and then also how Cell thinks it's so sad, but Trepagny says, well, these priests came to New France looking for death, which I was like, that's a little harsh, but okay. So what do you think of all that?
The first way I want to answer that question is by bringing up Bouchard and talking about what he saw, which was Mathilde. So, and I thought food. I was, and I'm like, oh my God, because, like you mentioned, like that what Bouchard said came right after a very serious conversation with Rene saying he saw his brother and his brother was calling to him, and Trepagny said, well, you didn't actually accept his calling, and that's why. And I personally love when we see more of the spiritual aspect, because it doesn't feel so judgmental to hear people having this kind of conversation, when spirituality can be whatever someone makes it for, their subjective, like whatever, however they personally feel. And so I really love that we've seen Rene's brother so much as a character, even though he's never been in the show, and obviously he has passed on. But we get the sense of this brother being someone who still kind of sits with him. And this idea that, Rene was so close to death that someone on the other side was calling out to him. So, and we know, like, the show in general, there's a bit of a paranormal spiritual aspect to it. So I appreciated the conversation between the two of them. And then the humor at the end.
Yeah. It was kind of like, okay, change of note. Actually, another one, speaking of death, we have Hamish and Cooke with Yvonne of talking about the company even more, and how the captain said the orders are for them to, Hamish Cooke, one, they need a foreign partnership. But then we find out that there's a barrel of pistols too. They're supposed to be supplied, which we're like, okay, we've traded that, but we don't really know where that is. But Cross supposedly does. But there we go. So Cross, when he goes to get the body from the water, so now we get tied into what we learned in the very first episode. So his company ordered him to kill a settler, one, but the girl sees him, and then that's when Hamish points out, but yeah, it was your plan to kill them all. So I'm a little like, what are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like the company says, all right, just kill the one guy. Did they assume the rest of the family is just going to vacate if the head of the household is dead then?
It sounds like a botched plan where, that's my idea. And also what I want to know is throughout this whole episode, we get Cross. I mean, we really saw him like episode 6 for the first time outside of that little cameo we got at the end of 5. But in 6, we really start to learn that he pretty much feels like he's dead, and that he doesn't want to live anymore. He wants Gomes to tell his wife that he's dead. So I feel like the job was botched, and I feel like it goes back to, what did the settlers see that night that really has changed them forever? And I feel like there's something else that we haven't seen yet that is a little paranormal. Based on the interview that we had with the executive producer, I feel like we're going to find out something that's a bit on the fantastical side.
I think that's a really good point, because I feel a lot more went on, and then Cooke somehow got involved of getting the Iroquois involved and killing other people. So I feel a lot of this got interwoven and things did not go as planned. Were there any other moments that stood out to you? I mean, we have the other kind of thing that goes on is how Gabriel confronts Cooke too at his wife's gravesite, which how he goes to his wife's gravesite is super weird, of picking up the dirt and talking into it. I was like, okay. Also, how then Gabriel points out for the company that the Iroquois are merely tools that are part of this plan. Is there anything else that stood out to you from these episodes?
Well, the only other thing I just want to briefly mention, and we've talked around it a lot, is the scene that we get between Delphine and Melissandre, where they're opening up to each other.
Yes.
And we really get like, we talked about, the woodcutter's mark.
There we go.
But I just really want to just mention that particular scene, even though I don't exactly like Melissandre, the fact that she obviously trusts Delphine so much and cares for her, that she told her something that she is not, she didn't want to tell anyone, even the mother. Obviously she had to tell the mother, but outside of the mother knowing, Melissandre would not tell anyone this. So I feel like she actually, this is like her one confidant.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They're sharing their secrets. So it was actually very kind of Melissandre to offer that secret, because Delphine has her secret and she's like, well, let me tell you something, so essentially like, hey, solidarity if we both have a secret. And she says, okay, now that everything's out in the open, let's start our new lives, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
There are probably other things that were really cool and stood out. If there's more things that we didn't quite get to, leave comments down below on what you thought of that. So let's get into our special segment and then we'll do our predictions after. So our special segment, let's talk about history. Take it away.
Awesome. I'm really excited. I'm going to just dive in for the sake of time. The first thing I want to mention, since it did come up in conversation, the Iroquois, there were a ton of tribes that were part of the Iroquois. Some of them include the Cayuga, Cherokee, Huron, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. There were others, but those are like the major ones that come up when you search. There's also, like I mentioned, the Iroquois Confederacy, which is a separate thing, which existed between 1450 and 1660. But a little bit separate. In reality, the Iroquois did eventually side with the British during the French and Indian War, but for a long time they were actually neutral. And then I did want to talk a little bit about the French and Indian War. That is what that came a little bit later than what we're seeing, but it was from 1756 to 1763. French and Indian War is how the colonies referred to it, but it was actually known as the 7 Years' War, so what happened here in North America was 7 years, but it was part of a greater conflict, which was globally known as the Second 100 Years' War, which was actually 9 years. And it was before we even get a war like World War One. I'll call it the Second 100 Years' War, since that's what they referred to it as globally. Even before we get to a war like the World War One, this particular French and Indian War was very global and there was fighting around the world. So it was kind of like the first major, global war that encompassed every aspect, every nation. Well, a lot of nations, not every single one.
Yeah. But. Very interesting. Thank you very much. I like that the show is giving us a little bit on the different Native American groups. They're not going very in depth, but we're seeing a little bit, and I hope we do see more of them. Because at this point, I'd say we've seen two groups. The one, the Renardette tribe that live near Trepagny's property area, like how they live. Oh, that was something interesting too. I like that Trepagny has a relationship with them in terms of like, you protect me from the rest of the other natives groups, and I'll protect you from the village. Which I was like, all right, It seems to, and then they trade with each other, so it seems to be a respectful group together. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that they're setting it up now that we see what Trepagny is involved with. And we're really going to dive deeper the next 2 episodes that we have left in the season.
Definitely. All right, let's get into some predictions, because our predictions are for the final 2 episodes.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
Cool. What do you think is going to go down? We have 2 episodes left, just 2. for the next one and the finale?
I have a feeling that Melissandre is going to try to get Delphine to come and be the new housekeeper at the domo. That's my first prediction. I also have a feeling that, I think that Duque will, I don't think he's going to die, but I just get the sense that he's going to eventually kill Cooke, and he's going to, like right now, he's going to be on his side. And pretend and like make it sound like, oh, I'm super loyal to you, and that Cooke is kind of gonna fall for it. I think he already has, and that Duque will be the one to kill him and take his place and be like the next, man. Like, not that he's, obviously Duque is not British, but I feel like he is going to take over the place of what Cooke is for the community of Wobik.
Yeah, I'm really almost concerned for Cooke, not necessarily because, he's still an awful person, but I don't know why he would want to stay there. Yes, you have a successful business, but he doesn't seem to be involved with the community at all. Nobody seems to really like him, he has no friends that, if he died, Duque killed him. I don't think anybody's really going to care. I don't know. I think Delphine might continue to stay with Mathilde, but I do think maybe bum heads a little bit, but I think it's good for her because Mathilde says, if you have ideas, you need to say them. And she even includes her and Renardette of like, what are your ideas of how let's expand this place? Let's make it bigger. Let's have a room for women, which I was like, oh, that's so cool and progressive of them of like, let's make this even cooler establishment. I'm wondering if Renardette is going to finally be able to communicate what went down and point the finger and be able to express what happened. I hope Yvonne and Hamish can get the rest of the information out of Cross, because it's been very like abstract words from him at this point. Or it'd be really cool if Hamish and Yvonne can see what he saw. I wonder if we'll get a little bit more of that supernatural, because like we saw it early on, but definitely haven't seen enough. It'd be cool that, even if we don't see something that they do. Yeah. Trepagny, Mathilde, but I do like the idea that Delphine could go live with Mathilde of like, all right, well, that Melissandre could bring Delphine back to the dome of like, hey, do you want to, we both could live there. That's an interesting option. Though I do kind of think that Cooke might propose to her, maybe, but he's still hung up on his wife. So I'm like, who's passed away? So maybe not. And then I kind of hope that Trepagny and Melissandre can work something out, because it doesn't seem like they're quite on the same footing anymore. But we shall see how it ends. I'm curious because there's only 2 more episodes to wrap this all up. So I'm like, I feel a lot could really go unexpected too, because we've had that as well. Like, yeah, sure, it's totally going to go this way. I do hope Marie and Sel run off together. They need to run off together and live a happy life.
Yeah, I agree. Or at least have a place where we can still see them on the show, but not with everyone else.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching and joining us. If you're watching later, please comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Don't forget give it a thumbs up. And also stay tuned after this, because we have some cool press footage from the junket for Barkskins. And join us next time when we cover the next 2 episodes. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so you know when those come out. And Rachel, while people are waiting for the next episodes and they want to keep the conversation going with you, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman, or on my author Instagram account at Rachel Radner Author.
Awesome. And then you all can find me online at Carrie D. Lane. That's KARIDLANE. Again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
I was interviewed by them a couple times in LA.
Oh, cool. God, I've already eaten a bloody old bar of chocolate.
Elena, if you would like to turn, your video and audio on. Oh, there she is. Elena, I'd like you to meet James, Christian, and Dio. You have 8 minutes for your interview.
Hi
Hello.
guys, Elena Jordan here with AfterBuzz TV. So excited to be joined by James Bloor, Christian Cooke, and Dio Horn from the new series Barkskins. Now, I wanted to ask you guys, since you're kind of the big three in the novel and the Annie Proulx novel, how do you feel that the Elwood Reed series compares to the novel, and how do you feel that your characters differ from that some of the fans may have read already? James?
Well, one big way actually for Duque is that in the novel, it's not specified that he was deported to New France. And actually, in reality, very few people were deported to New France. The French had a real problem getting people to New France. I think they had targets that they were trying to meet. I think in sort of the mid 1660s, they were hoping to have 30,000 French in New France, and they had actually 2,500 by the mid 1660s. And but there were little moments where the poor relief institutions in Paris, the Hôtel Dieu and the Hôpital Général, were given royal edicts to deport vagabonds and vagrants and people that were up to no good at various points. And they also had edicts to send, I think to banish women from Paris, but also to send men to the galleys, so to work in the ships, basically as oar power, and they would just like perish in the galleys. So there were little windows. So and Elwood changed it. So Duque didn't. I think in the novel, I think Duque basically elects to go to New France himself. Or it's kind of unspecified, but in the series he's deported, so that gives quite a different emphasis, and that's why he's so pissed and so reluctant, I think, at the start of the series, before he sees that there is opportunity.
I wonder if I want just to sort of I don't know why I'm thinking out loud now, but I wonder if the Brits got, when they started sending convicts to Australia a couple of centuries later, or a century later, or whatever. I wonder if they got the idea from the French, or were they doing that in, I don't know.
I think they did that with I think everybody had those penal colonies somewhere. My character, I know, is like in her 50s in the book.
Yeah.
And on the show, I'm like in my mid 20s. And she's also Mi'kmaq, which was actually not the people who were in that region. So they changed the character to Wendat, who were the people around there, along with the Iroquois. And they also made her mixed race when they cast me. So I think there's quite a few differences from my character on the show and the novel.
Now, I know too that you are a big advocate for casting, especially for actual Native American casting for those roles, especially since you co-hosted, congratulations to last year, the Inspire Awards on CBC. Do you feel that this show will maybe help elevate similar casting and similar stories to open up kind of more stories crossing different genres and different centuries and time periods as well, to have more inclusive casting throughout?
I mean, I hope so. I feel like, for me, somebody who I know my history, and I know that me looking the way that I do, a light-skinned Indigenous person, isn't that crazy being a Mohawk who is from the East Coast of Canada, because we were, in fact, if you know the history of North America, like in Barkskins, you know that we were some of the first people to contact and to mix. And so the further west you go, the darker the Indigenous people are. And so, but the only thing that I guess Hollywood likes to, or is used to putting out there, and is used to, and what viewers are used to seeing, is the dark skin, long flowing dark hair, but we're actually all different shades, and if you know the history you would understand why. And so in my short 15-year career, when I first graduated theater school, I didn't think I would ever play an Indigenous person because of because of how I looked and because that's not what the way casting worked, you know. But I look back now on my resume and I have, you know, I'm proud to say that my talent outweighed my looks, you know, in some cases. So I'm happy to be on something like Barkskins and to be on a show like Letterkenny and to be able to represent the light-skinned Indigenous people, because I am in fact Indigenous. So I think that there is changes happening, and it's happened in the 15 years, you know, and we get to play more diverse characters. We're not just the alcoholics or the guys riding on horses anymore, you know. We get to play you know, just people, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be referenced that you're an Indigenous person. It's just you're just there, you know. So yeah.
I have to say, talking about the different diverse characters as well, absolutely love you on Letterkenny, and from what I've seen of this show, completely different. So
yeah.
Big testament to your talent as well. Now, Christian, I wanted to ask you too, because Renee Sell being one of the two kind of title Barkskins in the show Barkskins, how do you feel that this character is being told differently through Elwood's perspective versus what some others may know of Renee from reading the novel?
Well, I think that I mean, the novel is so vast; it covers 300 years. I think, if I remember, I mean, it's a really brilliant book. But it covers 300 years, and I think that the period of time that that Renee Sell and that our characters exist in the novel is something like 60 pages out of the 300 or whatever. So it really is. It's like taking those 60 pages and creating, you know, 8 hours of television from using that 60 pages as the source material. But I think you know, that it's obviously based on a novel, but Elwood has made this his own show and created characters and allowed himself to go deeper into each character. So yeah, it's I can't actually you know, it's so long ago since I read the novel. I can't remember if I can't really remember much about Renee in the novel. Yeah, it's so long ago since I read it. But yeah, I mean, certainly Elwood has sort of has done his own thing and gone in lots of different directions with it. Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. And we are so excited to see this series too. Thank you all so much for joining us and talking with us today. Congratulations on this series too.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.